I am speaking on behalf of many, many people. I was the one chosen to do the talking here today, but there are a lot of people involved in the work that we do in Federation of Geologists, and we have many partners. I just want to do a couple of quick thank yous before I get into the presentation. Mostly our sponsor, which I will be talking about, which is the FIC-Fighters project, and that is an EU Horizon funded project, and we're going to be highlighting that today. And also CNG, which is our Italian society of also brought us here today. And I want to give a special thank you to Ella Johnson. She is our person from the UN Economic Commission for Europe's Young Resource Young Member Group. And she is bringing a new understanding of the role of linguistics into everything that we do in the study of linguistics. And so that's been it's been a huge learning curve for us as we try to figure out how to get through the scientific facts that is climate. I wanted to start out with a problem statement. So in my role as global ambassador, I not only speak to the masses, I also am a public affairs specialist. And so I speak to governments and to the decision makers. And so the first thing in public affairs is you identify your problem via a problem statement. And so that's where we're going to start out here, is we have 3 different types of barriers that we're talking about, and I'm not even getting to the ones you've already heard about that have to do with disinformation that like surrounds everything else. But before we even get to the purposeful miscommunication, we have all of these barriers just to normal communication. I'm going to frame all of my comments talking about the FIC-Fighters project. And so this is FIC-Fighters is a project that is looking to try to recycle and recover the components that exist in these huge white piles. If you've ever been near one of them in a phosphorus making operation, this project seeks to try to reuse those materials, and it is some complicated science. I am not a chemist. I'm actually an ecologist. I'm not even a geologist. I'm an ecologist that believes so firmly in the importance of geology in climate that I've left my ecology world for the geology world. And I'm going to fully admit, please don't ask me intense chemistry questions, because I'm not going to be able to answer them. Okay, so what I've done is I've sort of tried to identify for you on this slide the barriers that we have. And so because we are from Europe, I'm going to talk just about Europe, not that it is the center of the world, but it does illustrate just the complexity. If you think of the fact that over 200 languages alone are spoken on the European continent, right? Just in Europe. And then you expand that, it is actually dwarfed by the number of languages that are spoken on the African continent. And so if we think about just how complicated it is, I know that I am privileged as an English speaker. And this entire conference every year is put together and we are supposed to speak English. And so I'm fortunate in that, but not everybody does. And people are excluded because they're not able to speak English, or they're excluded because the translation services aren't available. So we're already not communicating with each other just because of the cultural language difference. And that's just the spoken part of the culture. That's not how people see the world. So I think it's also, so when I talk about like varied rates of multilingualism, I'm learning a little bit of Italian, not very much. I studied German for 7 years, but can barely speak it because I have no German-speaking friends around me. And so that illustrates, this sort of first set of barriers, right? Then I'm going to skip to the other side of the slide, which is the science and technical issues. So we're running about 30 minutes behind today. And we're running behind because of just simple technology issues. You all just got to witness, the challenges of having people try to video in, right? So, I mean, that's like basic technology. That's not even talking about the challenges of what is artificial intelligence going to bring, right? And will it bring more disinformation, or will it bring an ease of communicating? Because one thing AI and large language models can do is translate, and can translate really quickly. So it could be an actual game changer with respect to communication. But I don't know how many of you know what those chemical compounds are. So this is the science that is in phosphogypsum regeneration, and the things that we are going to pull out in order to make those compounds available to other industries where they're already created new instead of being recycled, right? So as scientists, we have to figure out how we can even explain what are these things, right? So I can get it down to ammonia. Most people can understand what ammonia is, right? But if you start talking about chemical compounds, you're not able to communicate with people. Oh, it keeps. Okay, so there is this swirl. If you look on my right, your left hand side of the slide, right? You have these swirling balls of these communication challenges that all have to funnel out. And we have a connection issue, and our poor tech guy is trying really hard to keep it on screen. I'm going to keep talking because we're short on time. So you have this swirl of communication challenges, and the idea is if you can corral them all together, then you can have a good translation of communication. But they sort of need to be done in order, from my perspective. You have to figure out how to translate the science first. Because if you can't translate the science into something simple, it becomes really challenging to translate it across languages. And so once you get past the science, and you can get to talking about, once you get past the science, then you have to also talk about generations, right? So I did not get into the things, but at any given time on the planet, there are many as 6 generations of human beings living. My living family alone, I have 18 and 21, they are Gen Z. I am Gen X, my husband is a baby boomer, and all of us are the silent generation and the greatest generation, just in my one family living alone. And we all have very different perspectives about the climate. I'm going to say crisis. On the far end of my generation, not really sensing it so much as a crisis, right? So just having those generations and their different perceptions is really important. Actually, backward. I need to go backward. One more. There. Okay. So I want to come back to this slide with respect to the generations, and thinking about the avenues in which people perceive information, and how they manage that information in anything that is coming at them. Whether we're having a conversation, we're meeting somebody on the street, it is social media, it is a coordinated disinformation campaign, right? Everybody manages this information through perspective, experience. They have their own personal priorities, they have their own drivers, and they have their own personal values. And there is an entire body of research with respect to how generations look at all of these things. And so as communicators, not only do I need to understand the science and be able to simplify it, not only do I need to speak multiple languages or find a great AI model to speak those languages for me, I also need to understand how people are receiving the information that I'm giving and whether or not they're even ready to be receptive. And I think that is a really important part of the puzzle that a lot of folks forget is that the person receiving your message has to be receptive. Okay, so I want to throw in just a really quick communication item, and this actually comes from the world of visitor services. So if you are trying to get information out from your museum or from your national park, and you want people to really learn something from the written information that you're providing. So if you can imagine, I'm going to be very American here, and if you can imagine you are at Yosemite National Park, and the geysers are exploding, and there are beautiful mountains, and there are streams that you can fish in, but the park wants you to understand the history and the culture of the native people and all of the ecology, and they even talk about climate. They have to do that in a very quick manner. So there is this idea called the rule of threes. And the rule of threes says that when you're trying to deliver a message, you should not have any more than 3 things that you want people to have to think about, right? And with those 3 things, if no more than 3 sentences of explaining each one of those items. And here's the one that really gets people when I say this. We would call it in the US a 3rd grade or a 3rd level reading level. That's 10, 11-year-olds. That's the level of information, the type of words that you need to use in order to get people to really understand and to engage. And it's not that everybody is unintelligent. It's that they have a lot of things happening in their world, and so you want to simplify it as much as possible so that they are receptive to what it is that you're trying to tell them. All right, so I'm going to just a little exercise here about simplifying. And I want to say that the folks at FIC-Fighters are doing a fabulous job of reaching out to communities. One of the things that is really important about that project is that they're putting together demonstration areas across Europe. That means they need to go into local communities and start talking to people about the phosphogypsum waste, and then how they can set up one of their technology centers to do the regeneration of waste and the recycling. So if you look at, I have 3 items, so I use my rule of threes, right? There is a whole lot more to FIC-Fighters than this, but I have these 3 items. And so on the, I guess it would be your left, my right, are the things that we're going to talk about, and then how did they do? So yes, they have 3 messages, so we've got it simple, right? Send no more than 3 sentences for each message, and this actually comes off of a slide from a FIC-Fighters presentation. So I did not truncate anything to make it looks like. All right. So you have 3 sentences, less than 3 sentences each, where they have not really followed the rule in the level of language. So can they simplify this, right? So sustainable raw material production, I can understand what that is, but a lot of people would say, what are raw materials? A geologist knows what raw materials are. If you went and talked to an artist or a designer, they would have a completely different definition of what raw materials are, right? They would say it's paint and it's paper and it's, I'm not an artist, obviously. So I think that's where you can clarify. And to say Baltic cements, what kind of cement is that? I think if you just tell people it's cement. So for those of you who cannot see the entire venue, the audience actually is sitting on a set of concrete steps, right? That is cement. May or may not be that kind of cement, right? But cement is a good enough word. It gets the point across, right? So we want to produce ingredients for cement, for detergents, for fertilizer, and for paper production. Those are all words that people can understand. You don't need to use big words. So, just to sort of take it back, this is the process for phosphogypsum recycling. And so one of the points that I wanted to make with this is this is for our technical audiences. This is not for all of you necessarily. If it is meaningful to you, that's great. I'm not taking the time to step through it. I just wanted to demonstrate that there is a lot of complexity in explaining this particular kind of project, but it's not necessary. What you need to know: detergent, pulp and paper, cement, fertilizer, and really circular economy, recycling, right? So we can even say circular economy, and a lot of people don't know what that means. It's about recycling. And bravo to FIC-Fighters for taking this on. All right, so quickly, and I know that we're late on time, and I'm going to make sure that Maria has time. So you need to know your audience, and I just want to make a few very important points because I think people don't really think of this. This is not about you. This is about them. And so many people go into a communication wanting to communicate out their message. You don't want to communicate your message. You want to communicate your message in a way that they want to have communication given to them. So you really need to know who your audience is. You need to treat them with respect and make sure that you know what they want. There's a famous American, Covey is his last name. He is a motivational speaker, and he says, "Seek first to understand, and then be understood." And I think if you can do that, and if you can become known and trusted, that word has been used much this morning. If you can become known and trusted, then you have a better chance to fight the disinformation that is out there. So when I was putting this slide together, my family was looking at it. They said, "Mom, what is that picture? What is that thing?" And I said, "That is a bee stinger." Right? So you can choose to work with honey, or you can be the bee that stings, right? And so I'm gonna hit knowingly provide false information to make a point. Every time you do that, then you become fodder for the disinformation people who want to get just a quick video clip of you and play it over and over and over again, and then it cannot be supported by science and fact because you bend the truth to make a point. So that is something you do not want to do. What you really do want to do is to frame the argument. You can tell a story in many different ways. So I can say that FIC-Fighters is about recycling. I can also say that FIC-Fighters is about reducing radioactive threat because there is radon that sits in those phosphogypsum stacks, right? So depending on my audience, whatever will appeal to them to get them noticed, that's how I can reframe the discussion. All right, so I just want to talk quickly about framing FIC-Fighters, right? I just talked about how it could be about environmental cleanup, but it can also be about carbon capture. So if I have people who are interested in climate, I can get them to the table by saying there's a significant carbon capture component to the work that we are doing. Quickly, I can't leave without letting you know why geologists are so important. When we came 3 years ago to COP, we were 2 of 4 geology, and you can't even count me because I'm not technically a geologist, but we were 2 of 4 people registered who self-identified as being affiliated with the geosciences. And now there are hundreds. I'm not saying that's because of us. I'm not taking credit for it. But I am saying that people are starting to understand geology is the study of the earth. You cannot figure out how to manage the climate crisis without a rudimentary understanding of the processes of the earth. And You don't have to learn that on your own because geologists are everywhere. They are in your community. You can reach out to them. And then just quickly, I wanted to let you know that we are involved in all sorts of projects as geologists, from education at the grade school level through university, as well as working in industry. I just want to thank you all, and if you want to reach out, please do so.